Hello, Pisces. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. This is your new moon forecast for the Pisces sun, Pisces moon, Pisces rising. Any strong Pisces in your chart, you have progressions in Pisces, you have draconic chart markings in Pisces, or you are here to understand that Pisces person in your life. This new moon forecast is going to be for you. So we're going to look at the main astrological themes for the new moon in Pisces, which is on February 20th, 2023, up to our Virgo full moon, which is on March 7th, 2023. So truth be told, I did not get a lot of good sleep last night. I have no idea what's going on. I have some ideas. I'll save that for a different video, but my cat was dancing all over me, knocking things over for 3 straight hours from about 3 almost to 6 a.m. when I just couldn't take it anymore and I had to get up. So I am a little in that hazy kind of dream world state that's so familiar to the Pisces person. So as much as it is out of the realm of my comfort zone to be so on that end of things, it's actually a good way to tap into y'all's energy. I don't have a ton of Pisces in my chart. I do have my descending node in Pisces, and Neptune is sitting right on top of it right now. So there's that element in terms of the soul's karmic history and mastery, but it's not very easy to tap into, certainly not when it comes to actual resources, because it's in my second house. So anyway, enough about me, because I'm not a Pisces person. This is about you. So we're going to look at those main astrological themes for the next 2 weeks with the new moon in your sign. So before we get into the meat of this forecast, just want to share some things that I'm offering right now. You can go to my website, catalystenergies.net. It's linked in the description box below, and all of these things will be on the homepage or the bookings tab. Or if you want to learn more about them, you go to the services tab. It's really easy to navigate the website, but the energetic tune-up is, it says full intuitive reading, but the primary modality and service is distance Reiki, and then reading on top of that, and it does exactly what it says, an energetic tune-up. And so Pisces, considering the theme of this new moon that we're about to have, and considering how Saturn has been transiting your 12th house now for a while, especially for those Pisces rising people, and Mercury now in Aquarius in the 12th house for the Pisces rising person, there's a lot of cleanup. There is a lot of deep introspection and focus maybe in the inner realms of your 12th house, of the unseen realms. And being a Pisces person, this is easily accessible for you, but considering where things are going, you may really want to consider an energetic tune-up. So that is being offered at a sale. Like I said, it's all accessible from the website, which is very easily linked from the description box. Also to Pisces and Virgo people, the lunar transit forecast is now open to you at the sale rate, a 30 or 60-minute reading looking at your natal chart and progressions, starseed markings, whatever's the most relevant, and giving you insight into this lunar cycle and how it's going to impact you. And I am now offering the draconic chart. And you don't have to be a starseed to get this, although that seems to be the majority of people that find their way to my work end up having strong starseed markings. But the draconic chart is the oversoul, and it looks at the layer of the unconscious energies that will often influence people. And again, considering that we have Mercury and Saturn in particular, and soon Pluto coming into Aquarius, coming into the 12th house for Pisces, getting into the unconscious drives, getting into the oversoul, and how that is really deeply influencing things in a way that may not be as accessible and as obvious as the aspects of your natal chart, which represent your personality in this lifetime, in this incarnation. The Galactic Oversoul reading is also being offered at a sale rate. So you can check all of those things out on my website if they interest you. I just wanted to let you know that they are available, and that there are a number of different modalities that I offer that can help synthesize a lot of the journey that we're all on together. So coming from different angles. So I'm going to take this stuff off of here, and we're going to bring the chart and just get right into into this. Now, this does apply to all of us when I tell you about the new moon in particular, which is that as the last couple of lunar cycles have started out representing the contrast of the sign that they're in. So the Aquarius lunar cycle, which as of recording this is finishing up right now, and it really, especially for the Pisces person, being that that is the 12th house for the Pisces rising person, bringing an awareness to and a growth cycle around what are we going to do in the face of a crisis? How are we developing our inner security in the face of a crisis? Well, this new moon in Pisces, also at 2 degrees and 2 degrees of Pisces, the Sabian symbol about this has to do with, and here we go, bring up the chart itself. Although I do like this background, by the way, if you are happening to watch it, or if you're just listening and you want to look at the background real quick. This is the Heart and Soul Nebula, which I think is a really good representation of the Pisces archetype and the Pisces symbol, because there is this essence of compassion and love and connection that is connected to Pisces, but also this is the realm of the soul and our connection to spirit as a whole in Pisces. So I wanted to show that to you because it's just so lovely, and we don't get a chance to really look at it so much when we have this chart up here. But this is why we're here. We're here to talk about the astrology for the Pisces person in relation to this new moon. So as you can see, Pisces, as we're looking at your chart, especially for a Pisces rising person, a lot of the energy here is very much condensed into these first 3 houses of the chart, which have to do with individual identity. Now, a Pisces person, this is not exactly your wheelhouse, okay? As a Pisces person, you tend to be much more dissolved into the formlessness, undifferentiated space of the dream time and of the collective unconscious. It allows you to tap into creative inspiration, the muse, so to speak, artistic imagination, dreaminess, and incredible healing capacities, right? So the other side of that, though, is that the Pisces person tends to get very involved in what's happening around them emotionally and spiritually, because there aren't a lot of boundaries that come along, especially as a Pisces moon, sun, or rising, because these have to do with the way the individual experiences and expresses themselves in the world. And so there is a seamlessness here, but there's also the potential to really not know where you end and other people or other situations begin. And the essence of this new moon at 2 degrees of Pisces is pretty clear. And the Sabian symbol is a squirrel hiding from hunters. And it's the idea that as we are enmeshed in the social and collective context, whatever it is, right? Society, the collective unconscious, our own karma, our multiple lifetimes, however you look at it, there is a necessity to exercise some real protection and caution. Not only does the squirrel have to, have to collect what it needs in order to get through a difficult time, or the winter, or a time when there isn't a lot of growth, right? Because the Pisces time of year, especially in the northern hemisphere, is still technically winter. And yes, we already had Imbolc on the 5th of February. That is technically the beginning of spring in terms of the cross point between the solstice and the vernal equinox, right? The fire of catalyzation and alchemy is really starting to activate within the latent seed. But as we find ourselves not just mentally and intellectually connected to everything, but truly experientially connected to everything, through soul, through spirit, through a seamlessness of emotional experience, there's a necessity to exercise some real caution. And this entire lunar cycle for everyone is going to be a growing experience about how to execute that, and what relationships in our life are allowing that to to happen, and what relationships in our life are not allowing that to happen. And for the Pisces person, and certainly when we get to a full moon in Virgo, so we have this Pisces Virgo axis, one of the main themes that comes out is the difference and the balance of service and sacrifice and giving of yourself and giving yourself over to the will of God or spirit or source. But when we're talking about human society, when we're talking about our connection to everything else energetically and the seamlessness of that, there is a necessity to exercise some real caution. So not only do we have to exercise that caution as we gather in all of the things that we need, preparing for the next cycle to begin, right? The Aries time of year, but also to hide ourselves from those elements that are hunting us, that are looking to us as a way to fulfill their resource needs. So Pisces, as a person who is way more comfortable and more identified with, I am everything and everything is me. This new moon is going to challenge you to learn some boundaries about yourself, especially because it's in your sign. And the fact that most of the energy, with the exception of Pluto and Saturn, which it's Saturn is soon coming into your sign. It will be coming into your sign at the full moon itself. That is something really important to consider. And Mercury, too, will come into your sign. The energy is really consolidated into these first three areas of subjective experience of the first house, the world around you, which is the world of resource and material value, the second house, and the third house, the realm of your consciousness, your individual consciousness, your mind, your central nervous system, and how it responds to the environment around you. And of course, Uranus being in Taurus in the third house for the Pisces person is really shifting that landscape in unexpected ways that make a sense of mental stability very difficult. Yet the north node of the moon at this underlying soul level is pulling all of us in this direction. And for you, Pisces, again, it has to do with the realm of your mind, your consciousness, and your nervous system and how it responds to the world around you, because this is really going to be the way that you are able to navigate the rest of the astrological calendar and your experiences. You do have Mars in your fourth house, so there's a lot of sharpness, there's a lot of initiative in terms of your words and expression and communication and ideas in relation to your personal power. And so we'll look at that because there will be a number of transits that are making connections to Mars in this location. But there is not much going on at the top of the chart other than really cleaning up some unfinished business with Saturn in Aquarius and Mercury here as well. That's really bringing the consciousness, the realm of how our minds are working, right? And the capacity for thinking, the capacity for logic, the capacity for pattern recognition. Also being very inwardly turned in terms of the unseen. And like I said, with Saturn moving through Aquarius, I mean, this has been a real challenge to the Pisces person to clean up the things that have been left unresolved in terms of your spiritual life, the realm of the unseen, your karma. And it's not easy with Saturn going through the 12th house. You really can't get around. You just have to deal with the reality of these issues, whatever they are, right? I mean, like I said, your spiritual realm, the realm of your karma, and the karma of the society that you're a part of, and how you are tied into that. So let's get into it. Pluto has been moving through the 11th house of the Pisces rising person specifically now for years and years and years. And so really alchemizing, destroying, eliminating in order to transform society in terms of the resonance of society. This is your social groups, your networks, your peers, your community. And so as that is going through its transformation, your ability to really exercise this caution and understand how important it is. I can't stress it enough for the Pisces person, because you yourself will be taking on so much of what is making its way through the collective energetically if you don't take the opportunity to grow and to establish the relationships that allow you to have that buffer, right? What is the there is a difference between surrender and service and martyrdom, right? And some people are going to take that position of martyr, and other people, this is going to be the perfect opportunity as a Pisces person to establish the difference between those things. And that will become very clear at the full moon, as it always does, right? This is a revelation, illumination, a culmination of an impulse that starts with the new moon that becomes a very clear picture of the full moon. So let's start getting into the nuts and bolts here of this new moon. So we just talked about the individual's need to ensure future subsistence, and this is about your identity. This is your subjective experience, Pisces. This is who you are. So, and to protect yourself from aggressive social elements, the exercising some caution in your identity is really important right now, Pisces. The other thing that comes out really strongly on the day of this new moon is that there's some interesting starseed activations that are coming along with this as well, which is the moon is going to come into aspect with her own nodal axis, as we're going to see here, and it's specifically going to be bringing up a lot of Draco stuff, okay? So it's not meant to bring any fear into the situation. Those of you who have had the readings with me, you know you have Draco starseed markings. You understand this in relation to your own journey and your own process. But for those who are not familiar necessarily, Alpha Draconis is over here at 7 degrees Virgo in terms of where it's positioned currently. So opposite of that in Pisces, this is where the moon is, and making connections to, like I said, her own north node and south node. So what does this really represent? So when we have a sextile to anything, there is opportunity, there's harmony, but there needs to be an investment of these energies together in order to get the most out of it. And the moon is 7 degrees Pisces and 7 degrees of Taurus is showing that when you stand in, like, uncompromisingly in who you are, right? And not for the sake of fulfilling your own sense of importance or perfection, but in the face of everything else, right? You're surrounded by the ocean of the collective unconscious, yet you have managed to find your sense of who you are. To thine own self be true, right? If you're able to do this, this will, I believe, with the sextile to Rahu, is going to give an opportunity to really be able to identify and create a space in your own mind for where things are going, right? So there's this idea with the woman at the well, which is what 6 to 7 degrees Taurus represents. The idea that the woman at the well, the Good Samaritan in the story in the Bible, and where we get that term, the Good Samaritan, the woman at the ancestral well, because she was an outcast and not connected to her own community, actually, and the traditions of it, was able to receive the revelation directly from Jesus when he showed up at the well, because she was like, she wasn't put off by him because they came from two groups that were supposed to be fighting and hated each other. But because she was already an outcast in her own community, she had left behind those traditions and was able to receive those future impulses where things are going. And this is where the North Node is pulling all of us right now at a soul level in order to evolve, in order to grow, in order to learn at that level. And so, but this requires that you are able to be true to yourself as you are surrounded by everything that is very Piscean, right? As you are surrounded by the collective unconscious, all of the experiences of everything around you, you still maintain a sense of uncompromising commitment to who you are. And when that happens, it's as if you are the woman at the well, and this is where you receive the true revelation, right? The idea in the story is that Jesus revealed his divinity directly to her, which is something he never did to anybody. It was all allegory and parable. But this woman, he was able to reveal himself because she did not have any pretense of hating him. And she offered him water from the well without even thinking about it. So that's right away. It's like you have to figure out how to, the impulse of being exercising caution, learning how to protect yourself against aggressive elements, but at the same time, be able to embrace this opportunity to not close yourself off entirely from everything, but to be true to yourself, therefore to receive the revelation of divinity, whatever that means to you. And this is going to come from your own mind, your own, the world right in front of you. And a Pisces person, regardless if it's rising sun or moon, the tendency is to really not focus on what's right in front of you or the tangible aspects of the world around you. It's very easy to get caught up in the dreaminess and the formlessness and the imagination and identify with those things. And so it's going to be very important to know the difference between those things, but also not cut yourself off either. So right away out the gate on the 20th, after the new moon, we have this connection. And the opposite to Draco is, especially where the moon is in Pisces, has a lot to do with the Draco as a frequency, as a resonance, right? And you can conceptualize that as a group of beings, if that makes sense to you. I don't necessarily, that's not a necessary condition to identify what these frequency of these star systems represent in the chart. But the Draco, they went sideways because they perfected their form for their own sake, right? They became masters at bearing, to ripening their own fruit, but they wanted to keep it for themselves, right? So master geneticists and wanting to live forever and all of those things and bypassing the natural law of this realm. So opposite of that is going to create that tension with those aspects. But there is something to that, which is that when we are committed to that process of perfection of form, when we can give it over to not for our own sake, but as part of fulfilling natural law or fulfilling divine law, then we actually become much more aware of who we are and our connection to the Great Spirit, divine source, to God, whatever, however you conceptualize it. So that's really strong right away. So it's the impulse has somewhere to go right after in terms of a deep soul like drive, but it's going to be right in front of you. It's going to be in your words, your own mind, your own consciousness, your actual central nervous system and how it functions. Okay. So let me find my notes here. Okay. So Venus is also going to come into Aries, right? And so for the Pisces person, Pisces rising person, this is the second house. And so she likes to be in the second house. This is the Taurus house usually. So Venus coming into Aries in the second house is, sometimes there's a little possessiveness here, but it also represents the emerging of new potentials out of the formlessness and very embodied in a lot of ways. So this is really the seed coming into potency and coming out of the formlessness. And Venus represents beauty and represents our embodiment, and it represents love and comfort and balance and harmony as well. So this is, I feel like, very favorable. The only downside to Venus in the second is that sometimes you become a little bit too possessive because Venus is an attractor. It's a magnetic quality. And so you start pulling things in. Luckily, in this case, it's Aries, so it's in a fire sign. So there's a balance here with her counterpart that rules this sign, which is Mars. So this is all happening all at the same time. Venus comes into Aries, we have a new moon, and then we have that sextile to the north node or that ascending node. So, and then Mercury has a sextile. As you can see here, Mercury in Aquarius has a sextile to Chiron. And so there are aspects here within the unseen that the mind can only really tap into through that quiet space, through prayer, through meditation, through kind of a separating of your own consciousness from the reverberations of society. And there's a way here to, it's not so much a shortcut, but it's almost like a cheat code, kinda. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's, an eagerness for a new path is really going to allow for a healing moment with Chiron and Aries as well, which for the Pisces person, I feel like has really been triggering that sense of shame and guilt for even having the natural abundance to heal oneself, right? And so again, the Pisces person tends to want to give, like almost martyr themselves, give themselves away. And this type of transit, Mercury in a sextile to Chiron, is where the mind, in its eagerness to find a new spiritual path, to go within and discover like a new way of getting somewhere, is going to release the guilt and the shame about our own potential to heal ourselves, right? Because that's really what the Kundalini energy at the base of the spine, or the coiled serpent, really represents. It's when, again, just like with the Draco, when it becomes for the sake of our own gratification, when we don't want to be in, when we want to push against natural law, that we won't want to give in service, but just keep it for ourselves. This is where that goes sideways. And that's how Kundalini yoga can so easily be infiltrated and used as a means to, utilize power for overpowering and exploiting people rather than healing yourself. But something here is allowing, as long as there's this kind of mental eagerness to establish this new spiritual path, this I think will allow for, like I said, overcoming and healing this woundedness, this shame and guilt for having even the capacity to heal ourselves through the natural world, through natural harmonics, through the energies of the planet itself, right? This is our birthright. And that's the thing about the Pisces person. The second house being Aries really does show that the spark of divinity is in the world, around, like the physical world. And so it is our birthright, this capacity to heal ourselves. But there is a tendency to just want to give ourselves away, and, as Pisces people. So coming into the 21st, and, the moon's going to move through this whole bottom half. That's what happens at every new moon when we look at the sign that the new moon is in, is that those individuals have the opportunity to emotionally and intuitively tap into the progress through those individual identity and expression houses, as it's more of an impulse, right? And then it becomes a much more clear vision and objective consciousness when it comes to the social context. So, we'll get to that when we get to the full moon, right? So, in the meantime, the moon's still moving through Pisces, and on the 21st and the 22nd. So when we get to the 22nd, we're going to see our first really favorable connection to Mars in your fourth house. So Pisces, it may have been some really fiery, direct communication with your family, right? The people in your immediate household, the people that you're committed to, but it may have been really direct and forceful in terms of your words and your expression at this point. So Mercury trine Mars, this is where you can really put that energy, it's like when you realize that you can put your mental energy, Mercury in Aquarius, and this was where the last full moon was. The sun was at 17 degrees Aquarius at the full moon. That when your mind is like a watchdog standing guard in terms of your spirit, in terms of your soul, in terms of your karma, in terms of your field, basically. When your mind is turned towards protection and standing guard and really taking this seriously, this trine to Mars is increased mental energy and concentration. There's a forceful and exact nature of thinking. It's a perfect time to defend yourself and with some confidence. And Mars is the one that kind of provides the confidence. And it may be something that's directed more at your inner life, where your personal power comes from. Or it may be a conversation or even an argument with family members, a spouse, the people in your most intimate communities and the people you are really committed to. But this is saying, this Mars Mercury trine is giving you the forceful nature in a way that is confident and allows you to defend yourself. This is a big defensive type of transit for the Pisces person, something that's really, really necessary right now. So, and for all of us, right? Everybody's going to be impacted in the same way. It's just the area of life is going to be in these areas that have to do with the unseen spiritual realm, and then your root system, where your power in your identity really comes from. And part of that is, taking seriously the necessity to stand guard in these areas that otherwise are really easily infiltrated when there are no real boundaries. And I'm not suggesting that you have to put a boundary up between you and source, far from it, but you have to know the difference between what is source and what is your own soul and what is infiltration from signals outside of yourself. And this will be a mental metamorphosis. There will be kind of like this mental maturity that comes out of this transit, which I think is really great, especially right after this new moon. Now, the next big transit that's going to happen is on the 24th, where we have the sun is now going to come into aspect with the nodal axis of the moon. Now, this is another starseed activation. Not only has the sun crossed Fomalhaut, the fixed star Fomalhaut, which is related to Archangel Gabriel, okay, and that's a couple days before that the sun is exactly conjunct, but in fact, it's probably at the time of that Mars trine Saturn. So let's go back and look at that and make sure, because that's going to be really important. Yeah, it is actually. Look at that. So as this trine's happening, the sun crosses Fomalhaut, and that's related to Archangel Gabriel. So messaging is a big part of this, the divine messenger. That's who Gabriel is, the divine messenger. And it's not only giving of, but the receiving. And maybe the receiving comes through your sense of identity, through your sense of subjective experience, and maybe your creative your creative expressive part of your personality is receiving the message, which then allows this to be even more powerful about how important it is to stand guard over those areas that are left open a lot of times because they're unseen and behind the scenes. And the sun conjunct Fomalhaut at this time is really strong. So when we come to the 24th, there's another starseed activation. Fomalhaut isn't necessarily a starseed origin that I read for, but you know what is Cygnus, or Alpha Cygni, which is in the tail of Cygnus constellation, and that is the swan. So the Cygnus starseeds are not nearly as prominent as some of the other ones, but they have this capacity to get it done, right? They come in and they just give themselves, like the good aspects of Pisces, where it is surrendered to the process and to accept it with full responsibility, and to have some sort of emotional and even social recognition for what one is doing for their community, but not doing it for that reason, if that makes sense. But you still get the reinforcement even though you're not doing it for that reason. So the sun crosses Cygnus and then comes into aspect with the north and south node. So 6 degrees of Taurus is in relation, it's like a bridge crossing a very deep gorge. It's like conquering obstacles with real life things, right? Building a bridge of sorts. And this is, again, in your mind. And perhaps it is in that sextile with the north node, with the sun at Cygnus, and especially if you know you're a Cygnus starseed, you have 5 or 6 degrees, 4 to 5 to 6 degrees Pisces in your chart, especially if it's a sun or another planet in particular. This is gonna going to bring this out really strongly, and you're going to again have this moment of harmonious activation in terms of building this bridge in your own mind. And as the North Node drives us all towards this location, for the Pisces person, it will feel almost like your duty to do so, right? And you will be motivated, just like the Cygnus starseeds. They get it done, and they're not doing it for recognition. They're not doing it for accolades, but they get them anyway because they really just know what it takes. And a lot of times the Cygnus starseeds are here because they know what it takes and they accept the hardship. And so that's something to keep in mind, that it may not exactly be all sunshine and rainbows with this aspect, but it will still allow the soul to do this bridging, and for the Pisces person in their own consciousness, or perhaps in just their environment right around them. The third house has to do with the people you talk to every day, the communications you have with your coworkers or your relatives or your neighbors. It has to do with the patterns of the data points, right? And so maybe you have to start connecting the dots in some way, and your soul is driving you to do that. And so maybe as you identify with this as like a mission, as we are connected here, the Sun connect Cygnus. There's a lot of grace with the swan, of course. And the swan is a bird that lives in the water and flies. And so there's this ability to really, again, bridge these two areas that oftentimes are not easily bridged. Air and water are not something that are necessarily connect to each other very easily in terms of elements. So that is really powerful as well, especially with Cygnus involved. So this is on the 24th, right? So what day is that? That's the weekend. That's Friday. And this is next Friday. I'm recording this on the 16th so that you have time to really kind of, get yourself, enjoy and really sink into the balsamic moon in Aquarius in the 12th house for the Pisces rising people, so that when it's time to set intentions for the new moon in Pisces for the Pisces people, you are ready and you're like, I know what my intentions are and I'm going to activate them with this new moon. So by next Friday, there is this inner balance and harmony with the sun in a sextile to the moon, and then also its connection to the nodal axis, right? So this is a lot of inner harmony and kind of balance at this moment of like what your mission is, identified with it, expressing yourself through it, and it really allows you to, bridge some gaps or find patterns intuitively that you may not find as easily with the conscious mind. So on the 25th. So the moon will conjunct Uranus, square Mercury. So when we get to the 25th, this is where there's some subconscious impulsiveness. There's creative frustration with Uranus already, but there may be flashes of insight. And maybe you have to kind of isolate yourselves for a little bit. And maybe sudden events, especially the moon conjunct Uranus like this, sudden events may result in relationship upsets. And maybe that's exactly the trigger for you to kind of detach for just a minute so that you are not distracted and you can get that flash of insight for maybe making new connections and finding patterns intuitively. Now, of course, the moon at this point will then come into a square with Mercury, right? Mercury, who normally is at home in the third house. And let's see here. No, not a week. We're not doing that. All right. Here we go. That's close enough. So the moon will come into a square with Mercury. And it can be so hard at this moment when the moon is square Mercury to really be able, especially Mercury being in an air sign. And remember, the moon is exalted in Taurus. It is powerful here. It likes to be in Taurus. So this is even going to be more of an internalized battle between your thoughts and your feelings. And your emotional biases may influence your thoughts. And it's really important that you take a critical look at both sides of things rather than allowing your emotional biases to influence your thoughts. And the best use of this type of energy is just mental hard hard work. And that hard work with Mercury in Aquarius, in your 12th house, right? That transcendental inward type of view that is looking for an appreciation of the things that have been working, the appreciation of the cushion that is there in terms of the unseen or your karma, for instance. What needs to be addressed in terms of the collective unconscious or the realm of spirit, right? That's what's happening in the 12th house in Aquarius. So, of course, the moon in the 3rd house in Taurus is going to just want to nestle in and look for the white dove, flying over troubled waters here. And that may be where the battle comes from, because it's not going to be that easy necessarily. Mercury is going to make you work for it, and work for it in a way of like, you got to get into prayer mode. You got to get into meditation. You've got to find some gratitude in terms of those spaces, because if you're just relying on a sense of getting the white dove over the troubled waters here in your own mind, you may be pretty frustrated, and it's okay if this battle is within you and you're internalizing it. It's better than emotionally, having some sort of emotional output that is projecting this out onto people, especially because we're talking about the moon, and the moon in Taurus is like, I just want to nestle in and feel comfortable, right? Emotionally comfortable. And maybe you're not feeling emotionally comfortable. Maybe the mind has got to really dig into those unseen realms in your own spiritual place in order to assess, there is this cushion here, and it's been here, right? My angels have been here. My guides have been here. These past experiences have actually allowed me to appreciate them as a shock absorber. So, and especially coming off of like this creative frustration where the moon and Uranus come together, and there may be kind of just like this, and pull away. It's okay to pull away, because that's exactly when you're going to be, you know what, I just need some alone time. I just need to think about things to myself and really go into that meditation or prayer mode and really just come to terms with the blessings that I do have access to. The moon's going to start crossing the Pleiades on the 26th, and it's going to sextile Neptune. It's going to square Saturn, which is like coming into the very last degrees of Aquarius in the 12th house. And this is where we have to start, especially square Saturn. We really have to start taking responsibility for our emotional reactions. And it can be very restrictive at this point with the square to Saturn. It can feel very lonely, right? So there may be over next weekend a number of different experiences that in the world right in front of you, or in your own mind and the way that you're emotionally interacting with the world around you, there may be these moments of feeling kind of restricted and lonely and misunderstood potentially. But this is exactly the type of transit where unhealthy and codependent relationships can be seen for what they are, and you're like, you know what, I want to come out of this like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis, but that requires that you are able to understand both positions. And this is where the moon conjunct the Pleiades is really going to assist, because for those of you, and many people are Pleiadian starseeds, it's pretty common amongst starseeds that the strong heart chakra comes from the balancing of our polarity. And that means that we have to put on both shoes, and we have to be able to see both sides of a situation. And yeah, that may make us feel restricted and depressed and sad and lonely, but the metamorphosis that can come out of this at a spiritual level is pretty substantial. So don't get too caught up in things if that's how they're feeling at that moment. And then you have the moon. Speaking of which, the moon will be in a trine to Pluto pretty much the same time. Pluto that's coming into the last degrees of Capricorn. This is really challenging, because this last degree of Capricorn is like it's the very top of the pyramid, right? It is the secret executives making all the decisions for everyone, right? 30 degrees Capricorn. And the power that is being extracted by these people, at the same time as the old guard is truly being destroyed. I mean, this is very interesting and very powerful territory. So in terms of the Pisces people and how they're going to make the most use of this, especially a trine to this, as the moon is crossing over that last degree of Taurus, still conjunct the Pleiades, there's a transformation by intense emotional reactions. And we may be driven, we're all going to be driven, but in your own mind, your own pattern recognition, your intuitive pattern recognition, your emotional reactions to the world around you and your own communication. You may be very subconscious, right? That's the thing. There may be a lot of subconscious communication from this trine, and you're driven to probe way more deeply into the realm of your own mind, how it functions, the give and take of data points in the third house, and that you are more than just yourself. You are an extension of a process that has been going on. And that trine, it's going to be very eye-opening and intense, right? So make the most of it, Pisces, because it's going to come right to your mind and right into your central nervous system, right into your sense and perception. So, and very intense, okay? So we come into our first quarter moon, right? So this whole time we're in this crescent moon phase. So this is the time where after the new moon, it's an impulsive just idea. It's an impulse. It's not even something that we can conceptualize, because the moon is taking all of the energy of the sun and then mediating it as it goes along. So in the crescent moon phase, we're starting to realize the resistance that comes from being here in material form as we are integrating the full solar light, or the photonic light, or the light of the sun. And this is what the moon does. It reflects back to us this process in a way that we can actually integrate it. So as the crescent moon is going along, you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel the resistance, the restriction, and responding to it or reacting to it, until we get to our first quarter moon, which is on the 27th. It's a mutable square because it's going to be in Gemini. So there is this sense of mutability and a sense of flexibility here. Okay. So what is this first quarter moon? So as with all first quarter moons, this is a crisis in action. What are we going to do? Right? We're starting to realize that there is natural resistance within ourselves to this solar input, and the moon is reflecting that back onto us, and we're feeling that. And so then we get to this first quarter moon, and there's a crisis moment. Okay, now what? What do we do? And the moon will be in conjunction with Aldebaran. This is Archangel Michael, okay? And it's a quiver filled with arrows, is it not? And for the Pisces person, this is in your fourth house. This is where your power comes from. This is your root system. This is your personal life, your family, your household, right? Your most intimate relationships and your commitment to them, loyalty, all of the things. And the moon in the fourth house is pretty powerful. Even if it is in Gemini for you, it's still very powerful here. So when we have this first quarter moon, so the struggle here is in terms of where your personal power and character really come from. So you as a Pisces person with the sun in your sign, and it's just like, I am spurring things along for the sake of everybody, right? It's like a self-quickening, but it's not just about you, right? Your power doesn't come from your identity, right? Your power, just like all of us, comes from our root system. Just like the seed is not the same as the entire plant. It just holds all of the potential. So as you are identified with this self-quickening, it's the moon at the first quarter in Gemini that's just like, well, where's your power really coming from? Where is your capacity to cut through the bullshit and dig deeper into your own consciousness in order to tap the waters of your own soul. And Archangel Michael is a channel of divine power, right? This is the warrior, right? And this was the main opponent to Lucifer in that story. And so you may need to find that it's not just about you, Pisces, although it's really easy for the Pisces person to be like, oh, I'll just give myself over. It's about your character, and it's about those relationships that consolidate your power. It is about your root system, and you need help. And we all do, right? We're all gonna have this moment of what do I do? But for Pisces people, it's gonna be that fundamental square between identity and like actual character, emotional self-esteem. Like, where does your loyalty actually lie? And it's in your consciousness, right? It's in your capacity to interact with the world around you, Gemini, right? And to build your consciousness, to build your knowledge base. That's where your power really comes from, this mutability of ideas. And you may have a ton of ideas, right? That's your quiver filled with arrows, but eventually you have to pull one out and you have to pull it back and you have to hit the bullseye. And that is a big part of what this represents. So Archangel Michael vibes all day long, because we can't do it alone. And this, I think, is really what's going to bring up for all of us. So while this first quarter moon is going, oh shit, what do I do? How do I not only react to resistance, but how am I going to start actually getting out ahead of these obstacles, which is what the first quarter and the gibbous moon really represent. Well, while that's happening, the moon's going to keep going through Gemini and making connections all in Aries, right? With Venus and Jupiter and Chiron and all these sextiles over to Aries. And so these give a lot of opportunity to, especially with Venus, enjoying our friends and our loved ones. There's opportunity to expand when we are able to liquidate the past of where we've been in terms of our family, our traditions, and be able to identify the big picture of real cosmic attunement in the world around us, right? And ultimately, when the moon comes into conjunction with Mars on Monday, the 27th, while it's still in its first quarter, it's reached its pinnacle, and then it comes into alignment with Mars at 18 and 19 degrees of Gemini. There's a lot of courage, there's a lot of enthusiasm and initiative to act in terms of our personal life, our intimate relationships, fighting for a cause that you really care about, and in particular, tapping into a seed knowledge that's deeper than any of the things that you have previously identified as, oh, this is where my root system is. So you may have to go further than your own family history. You may have to go deeper than your own religious traditions. You may just have to, like a root system may have to just go deeper and wider in order to find water. And 19 degrees of Gemini is about seed knowledge, something that is infinite, that we can tap into in terms of the Word of God, if that makes sense. The Word of God, Source, the Great Spirit, is the Logos, is beyond religious institutions or beyond even our own family traditions. It's so much deeper and vaster. And this conjunction, I think, is going to be for the Pisces people. It's just like, you know what? This is going to give you so much enthusiasm and initiative to really act and to go deeper and fight for the causes you care about and be willing to have the courage to go deeper than what you thought was holding you in place, right? Something that is more than just traditions or family history. And I love Mars for that, because it really does give initiative, okay? And then the moon will continue moving through Gemini. It's going to square Neptune, trine Mercury. Now it's going to trine Saturn. I think this is important because Saturn's at these last degrees of Aquarius, and Pluto's at the last degree of Pluto's at the very last degree here of Capricorn as well. So as the moon's getting into this territory of Orion, by the way, so into these last degrees, this trine with Saturn is It's a good time to pay respect to the elders and gives a lot of patience and emotional strength to handle sensitive issues, right? The show is over at this point with the moon in the fourth house, and you kind of have to make a choice now. And Saturn is holding it down in your 12th house about conscious totality of being. This is everything that is and ever will be in this area. And in order to make a choice, you may have to tap into your elders, your ancestors, right? But it also gives a lot of patience and emotional strength because it is a sensitive issue with the moon in the fourth house, very sensitive. So Saturn is going to be a good point of reference and guidance in your 12th house, right? And your 12th house is the unseen, of course. So that's what I mean, tapping into the elders, tapping into your ancestral history and seeing what comes up there. Now, at the same time, it's going to be in a quincunx to Pluto, and so there's going to be a lot of fear and a lot of worry about the societal aspects that are being basically destroyed and eliminated and transformed. So you may feel bad about yourself because of what has been going on there and your participation in it, okay? And so emotional outbursts can be a tipping point here. So that's something to consider. But I think what really helps here is this trine to Saturn. It really can be very grounding while that kind of stuff is going on. So then we come into March, okay? And so there's a really big transit that I want to bring up here. So we get into March 1st, the moon moves into her home sign of Cancer. So she will, and this is your fifth house, Pisces. So the potential for really imaginative and emotional creativity is really strong here, but there's also a lot of mood, especially a moon in Cancer, exceptionally moody when the moon moves into your fifth house like this. So just be aware of that. The good news is that it'll be in a trine to the sun in Pisces, thankfully. And this is very comfortable. This is very confident. There's a revelation, I think, that you will come to terms with when it comes to your creative expression and your sense of joy and optimism and a sense of thrill and excitement and your voice, right? That's what the fifth house really represents, your heart. And I think that there'll be something revealed at this point that will really give you a sense of confidence about what you're going through as a person at this time. And the second is really important. So I'm going to be doing another 3-week Reiki attunement process. I will be putting out promotional material on my email list and certainly on social media, and I will have it together for the Starseed Ministry on Monday. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be 3 weeks of daily attunements, but it's going to start around this time. And these transits are really important because Venus and Jupiter are going to come into a conjunction in Aries, and this is normally a time of really good benefits, of good karma, especially for you Pisces in the second house, taking advantage of any financial offers. Investments should be turning a profit, sudden and unexpected windfall, but I'm telling you what, this comes from your ability not to engage or fulfill your frustration for things not happening soon enough, right? If you can really tap into that, then whatever you kind of put into action or whatever investments you make in this moment with Venus conjunct Jupiter, oh my gosh, it is going to turn a profit in the long run. But it really requires that you don't jump the gun or that you don't give in to your frustration of wanting things to happen right now. Because if you do that, it's not gonna yield what you think it's gonna yield. So there may be a sudden and unexpected windfall of resource that you can then turn around and invest, but you have to invest it and not blow it, okay? Seriously, it's going to be really important. And then right after that, Venus comes into a conjunction with with Chiron as well, soon after that. But the other transit on the 2nd that's really important is that before Mercury comes into your sign, it's going to be conjunct Saturn at the last degrees of Aquarius. And this is where we can apply critical thinking to very serious issues. What is the conscious totality of being? What is the beginning and the end of all of it that we are part of? And it'll give a common sense approach, attention to detail for what? Long-term planning, okay? And there may need to be a serious discussion about hardships that you can lead to useful outcomes. So you see how Pisces, this moment on the 2nd, whatever comes your way that it seems like good luck and fortune, you have to be really mindful about your approach and use your common sense. And you may have to use your common sense in your spiritual or unseen intuitive place so that you can initiate some sort of long-term plan with whatever bounty comes your way in terms of resources, okay? Because otherwise you'll blow it. And there's a real strong capacity to dwell on the negatives and not actually see something that comes your way as good fortune. That's the other thing about Mercury and Saturn together. If you get stuck in your negative feedback loop, you're going to be really stuck. And this is in a place where somebody else could be implanting those types of feelings or thoughts. So you're going to have to be really, again, it all goes back to this new moon. Right? You're going to have to really be mindful of your field and how it's being influenced, because you have a real serious and beneficial moment here in terms of your resources, in order to do something amazing with them. But if you get stuck in your negative approach with Mercury conjunct Saturn and you cannot get out of like this negative, depressed place, you're not going to take full advantage, and you'll probably end up just blowing those resources and letting it, your frustration, letting it it'll just like fizzle out. It won't actually turn into anything. So, like I said, common sense, please, is really important. And then on the 3rd is when Venus is in conjunction with Chiron. And this is such a beautiful healing moment as well, of just like, we can wrap ourselves in our capacity to fulfill our actual desire of being. And Venus, again, is about embodiment and is about our comfort and love and balance and harmony and resources, and attracting to us what it is that we actually want and what is beautiful and harmonious. I think this is wonderful. Venus conjunct Chiron, like a heart healing big time, in that, you know what? I am able to wrap myself in my own Technicolor Dreamcoat. You know what I mean? With Venus. And she's like she is an Aries. So she's not exactly totally like a soothing balm, but there is this sense of completion and celebration when she's in Aries too. And taking on that seed point energy, right? Like almost that she is attracting in that energy as well. And I think it can be really healing in this moment. And as we move towards the full moon, the next really big transit is going to be on the 6th. And this is when the sun is in a sextile to Uranus. And this is, again, surprising and stimulating encounters. Creativity is stimulated, especially when it seems like there is creative frustration, flashes of insight, new discoveries. And this is where a flow of inspiration comes through you subjectively as a Pisces person that is really going to make the best of the frustration that comes from the past is not enough to confirm where we're going. And that in itself can be frustrating, especially in your own mind. But when you are fully identified and shining, when the sun's in your first house, you are a beacon, right? And a flow of creative inspiration comes through you that really allows you to take the most advantage of stimulating encounters and flashes of insight in order to make new discoveries, right? Otherwise, we just keep getting caught up in the loop of like, well, I don't know where we're going because I don't know, it doesn't matter where we've been because that doesn't confirm where we're going. And then you just kind of get caught up in the feedback loop of Uranus just like constantly raising hell in your life. And for the Pisces person, it's in your own mind. And I think that's something to consider as well. It's in your own mind. And until you get that kind of on lockdown in some ways and embrace the shifting landscape of your own consciousness is as a means to actually tap into a higher form of consciousness, you're just gonna, you just end up being taken, your energy just ends up being taken for somebody else's agenda. And that's, and then you feel like a martyr, right? Or you just give yourself over without any sense of your connection to God and your responsibility to be of service. And then we have on the 7th, the full moon will be in Virgo. It will also be in a trine pretty much to Uranus as well. So there's going to be some eruptive type of experiences that we're all going to be having. And for you, Pisces, it will come out in relationship, right? The relationships in your life that are going to go through some sort of volcanic eruption, but it'll be in a trine to Uranus. And so I also suspect that this will be one of those moments where you can take advantage of the flash of insight and the new discovery to be like, okay, either this relationship's about to quantum leap to the next level and release this, this repression, or you're going to be like, you know what, it's time to move on. So Pisces, that's what I got for you for your new moon forecast. So just remember the things that I have offered. If any of them speak to you, you can go to my website and book directly from there. And yeah, you guys have a great new moon. Like I said, it's on the 20th of February. Take very good care of yourselves and your energy field, Pisces. Really strongly take into consideration how important it is to protect and exercise some caution about your subjective experience so that you yourself are not projecting someone else's agenda through your very sensitive, compassionate, but ultimately willingness to kind of give too much of yourself, because if you're going to do that, you should be doing it for the highest purpose. And if you are stuck in dreams or delusions about things or propaganda, especially with Neptune just being in your first house, that can be, that can be a real waste of your energy. And then you just become, the conductor, the conductive element for someone else's energy to move through the collective. And we don't want that. We want all of us to maintain a sense of real personal fortitude, and our service is service to the highest, but we still have to be here in our bodies and in our experience in order to fulfill that, right? So, all right, Pisces, take very good care of yourselves. I appreciate everyone so very much, and I will see you on the next video, guys. Thank you so much, and take care of yourselves.